And hi, everybody. I am here with Sarah Howard from Elite Mobility Training. And Sarah and I met, probably about 2, 3 years ago now.
Yeah, via Twitter.
Yeah. Which is again, just such an incredible resource for parents and students to come out there and learn amazing new things. And I wanted to bring you here today, first of all, because Will Carroll mentioned you in his book with the power of both mobility and yoga. And I want to dive right in. Why does it seem so taboo for these young teenagers to talk about yoga and mobility?
Well, I mean, it's never been a focus before, right? The whole focus on everything is grinding harder, no days off, no time for rest. So they haven't been shown it. They haven't been shown that this is actually part of a lot of people's training, but it's not sexy to film. It's not sexy to photograph. So they don't put it on social media. So these kids see their idols and all they see is them deadlifting 400 pounds or throwing 95 miles off the mound, and they think that's all there is. But in reality, these guys are doing this behind the scenes. They're just not sharing it because it's not flashy.
That makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, I know that you've worked with people like Jack Flaherty, and he shared some video of some of his stuff. What are the most common misconceptions that you see that either parents who are looking into it for their kids or the athletes have about the practice of yoga for their baseball career?
I think a lot of people think of the word yoga and they feel like they're going to turn into Gumby and be too flexible. And when in reality, that virtually cannot happen. I mean, if they were to stop working out and just do yoga 24 hours a day, yeah, that's going to happen. But so that's a big one, that they're going to get too flexible or too bendy. And then like with the therapy balls, the biggest misconception is it has to hurt to work. Right? People think that harder is better, and the exact opposite is true.
So let's talk about that, because one of the things that obviously Sammy got introduced to early on when he started training at True Grind was the practice of obviously using the foam roller and using the lacrosse balls and stuff like that. And a lot of people think that that's changing the fascia and stuff like that, and obviously it's not. And those tend to be harder, and we'll talk about your balls in a few minutes. We don't want to get to it too quickly, but let's talk about what is the thinking behind the lacrosse ball, because I do see some kids carry lacrosse balls in their bag, or they'll sit on a baseball like even between a game and crush their lats. Is that helping them? Is that harming them? What is that actually doing for them?
Nothing. It's doing nothing for them, and it's potentially hurting them. I mean, they're essentially rolling their body on something that's as hard as a rock, right? A lacrosse ball was made to play lacrosse. A baseball was made to be hit by a wood or metal bat, and they're rolling their tissue on it. So the reason people stop doing this work, I think, is because they're using those kind of tools that don't get them results, because your body feels something super hard and invasive, and its job is to protect you. So it braces, it stiffens up, which is the exact opposite of what you want to happen. But I think because coaches have these balls laying around, they're like, oh, people talk about rolling, like just go, here's a ball, go roll on this. And they hate it. It hurts.
Oh, it certainly does. I mean, even golf balls, right? The people will use golf balls on their feet and stuff like that. And yeah, it could be quite painful.
Well, and think about that. The bones in your feet are so small, and you are taking something that is so hard and smashing it. So yeah, you could very well injure your tissue or your bones by smashing your feet on something hard like that.
So if I'm a parent, and unlike Sammy, who's obviously been working on his mobility for years now, and I want to understand why there's value for my baseball player to start some of these practices, what would you list as the top 3 benefits for them as a baseball player and getting involved in either some, it could be yoga, doesn't have to be yoga, but some kind of mobility practice, and how to start incorporating that on a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, I think the benefits are injury prevention, moving better and becoming more aware of your body, and then the mental aspect of it, right? Yoga is so intimate with movement and breath. And when you can become more aware of your breath, you can become more aware of the present moment. And you have that tool then on the field to be able to quiet your mind instantly. But unless you practice that off the field, it's never going to help you on the field. So it's huge for physical and mental.
So if you were a parent, let's say of a tween, right? Let's call it a middle schooler, and they want to start incorporating some of these routines in there, should they be doing the same yoga routine that maybe mom is doing, or should they be looking at something a little different?
I mean, I think that depends. Like, I'm not a proponent of athletes going to hot yoga. And the reason I'm not a proponent of that is because it's a massive workout, right? And the reason that they like it is because they feel like it's a workout and they're sweating and it's hard. They get enough of that stuff during their training. So if mom is going to Bikram yoga or a hot yoga class, I'm going to say no. But if mom is going to or doing yoga at home that's just a like level 1, 2 vinyasa class, absolutely. You know, there are some things that they should skip, like if there's 100 chaturangas, which is essentially a push-up, skip them, right? They don't need to work their shoulders and their wrists on that anymore. So there are little things like that. Like, I don't have my athletes do chaturanga at all, ever. That switched. When I first started, I was having them do that. But then I realized, like, I don't need to prove how hard yoga is. These guys don't need more of a workout. So what can I take out from yoga and still give them the good stuff? So chaturanga is just stitch up. But yeah, they can absolutely do yoga at home with mom or dad, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's like I said, I think it's a mental barrier for a lot of teenagers to think of working out with mom and dad. But I think it's obviously, if they started incorporating some of those movements when they were a little younger, it would become a lot more natural and easier to build in that habit as they were going forward, because they would feel those benefits much earlier.
100%. If your body can get into a position easier, you're going to be able to have better force production and better rotation and better movement, right? So that should be a green light for most of them. Just that ability to get into the position they need to get into with ease.
So let's talk a little bit about your bowls. Let's start with the tune-up bowls, because those are obviously very different. And they're not quite like lacrosse. Yeah, I got mine here. And I'm going to take one and put one down because I'm going to work on my foot while you're talking. I might as well.
Good job.
I'm right here. Okay, so why are they different? Obviously, they're squishier. I don't know if people can see that if they're watching the video, but they're a little squishy. They have a little give to them, and you have two different sizes to them as well. So can you talk about why they're different and how each one of them is used a little bit differently for what kinds of work?
Yeah, so there's 3 different sizes. There's the originals, which are smaller than this. There's the plus size, which is what the majority of my athletes use. And then there's the alpha, which is that big one that you just showed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in terms of like when you go to massage and somebody uses their palm or their elbow or a finger to get in. So it can kind of get into different parts of your body differently with more precision. It also is dependent on how big of a body you have, right? So a lot of the guys I work with are bigger athletes, so they're going to use the plus or the alphas for everything. You're demoing one great thing. You can use one ball or 2. They are squishy and they are grippy, right? So that's going to disarm your nervous system. It's going to feel safe. And the grippiness helps to hydrate your tissue better. So it's all about keeping things able to slide and glide on the inside. I like to say your body needs to be like a slip and slide, right? If you go down a slip and slide with no water, that's not going to be very nice. If there is hydration, yes, you're not going to move well and you're possibly going to get injured. Exact same thing with your body, right? So these, you can use 1 or 2. There's that little space in the middle, which is great for like when you take these down your back, it snuggles around bones, which means it grips more tissue, right? As opposed to a foam roller, which is flat and it goes right over the surface of the bones. So it's fine, But for these busy athletes, let's use something that's going to impact more tissue.
Well, I mean, we love it because we'll take one of each ball usually when we travel, especially like the baseball tournaments, and they're in the bag. And, after that long car trip, there's nothing like getting on the ball, and we'll swap between the two of them. Me, because I've been spending most of the time driving, him because most of the time he's been sitting cramped up in the car.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a massage anytime you need it, right? You get to the hotel, you don't have a massage therapist, budget is tight, whatever. You have a massage anytime you need it. And that's pretty cool.
Actually, before we dive into the other one, let's talk about what are some of the key spots that you see, especially pitchers, for example, want to hit often when they're using these balls?
Pecs, for sure. Deltoid, rotator cuff trap. All of those areas can be done at the wall if need be. If you don't have floor space, if you don't have a block to hit your pec, you can take one ball, go to the wall. Those are great. Hands and forearms are often forgotten, but think about how much they're gripping a ball, a weight, their bag to carry. So those are forgotten spots. Groin is another one we hit. Groin and quads are often taken care of in sessions.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of also the lat a lot, right? Like really trying to get in there. But for that, oftentimes you'll also use this ball. Hold on, let's get that there. The Coregeous ball. So tell us about this one, because this is very different than the other two.
Yeah. So when I first started this is all the role model method is all from Jill Miller. So I was having some low back pain and low back discomfort, and nothing I was doing, like massaging it, wasn't helping, yoga wasn't helping. And I somehow Googled something and came across her video that says, if you lay on this underneath your stomach, it is going to ease what you're feeling on your back. And I'm like, well, that is BS. Like, how does that work? But I was like, whatever, it's like $12. I'll buy it. So I bought it, tried it, and I was blown away. Within minutes, I felt relief on my back. So, of course, dove into the program. But basically, like any weight stuff you do, your core is being used, right? Your core is being strengthened. And then you're also strengthening your core with core workouts. And this area never gets touched during recovery. You think about cupping, Normatec boots, massage even.
Mark Pro. Yep.
Yeah. Never. It only gets strengthened, but it is impacting your entire body's movement. So shoulder mobility, back stuff, hip, it is intimately tied to everything. So this,
especially if you're a rotational athlete.
Yep. This is something that we use. They lay on it under their abdominal area. So it helps to soften the abdominal muscles. It helps to get things supple. And then, like you said, we bring it up to the chest. We do a lot of movement underneath the arm, onto the back. And it's massive, right? So it touches a lot of tissue in a short amount of time.
And you said, and I think the parents probably heard it and probably didn't really process it. It's $12.
Yes.
It's $12.
And $15. Yeah, they're really priced well, so people can buy them, right? And then if you're buying them for a team, you can get wholesale, and they're basically half off.
Now I know that you have all kinds of different yoga certifications. Do you focus in on one particular type with your athletes, or are you trying to mix and match and blend to figure out what works best for each individual athlete?
I mean, I pull things from what I feel is best, and I get rid of what I don't need. I do a lot of vinyasa, so a lot of the moving ones, right? Like sun salutations, warrior twos, warrior threes, that kind of stuff. We do a lot of flow. We do a lot of movement. But my sessions with my guys are probably 75% of this work and 25% yoga. So it's great. They get to lay down almost the entire time for the session. I mean, how could you hate that?
Well, but it's what you mentioned earlier, right? The thinking goes, you got to just keep grinding. You got to keep working harder. You got to get more swings. You can't rest. And I think most parents don't understand that muscle builds in recovery. It builds in rest. It does not build in the weight room. Like, you put the strain on it, but you need that time to recover in order for the muscle to actually build. And it's one thing that, Sammy's even written about it on blog post somewhere. He talked about, his nighttime recovery routine, which is extensive. I mean, he'll go ahead and he'll do electrolytes before he goes to sleep because he wants to make sure he doesn't cramp that anything that he's missing. And it just becomes a habit. It's just something he enjoys doing. That sets him up. He may have done already a little Mark Pro if he had a heavy workout day. He'll go ahead and then he'll go to his bedroom and he'll start using his blue light glasses. He'll start, doing some mobility work, some band work. And that will get him, ready to start getting into that relaxed mode before he goes to sleep. But that's taken over years to develop those habits. When you're working with professionals, how often do you see that they have some of these habits?
I will tell you that I was pretty shocked when I started this to hear the amount of them that were never taught this through high school, college, and into their pro career. Like, it is just not something that's done, and which is obviously such a bummer. So yeah, more often than not, they don't have a routine, right? They maybe get a massage a week, maybe twice a week, but in reality, this is stuff you need to be doing on your own body. You need to take responsibility for being able to, and having the knowledge of how to keep your body healthy, especially when you, don't have the budget, don't have the time or scheduling or have a massage therapist there. And like I said, this just isn't, like, abdominal stuff isn't covered under massage anyway. So yeah, it's shocking. And coaches need to hopefully start changing that. They need to have team time for recovery as opposed to telling them to do it at home.
Yeah,
they don't.
You manage what you measure and what you prioritize.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and the coaches are giving them a really bad message. They're saying this is not important enough for me to give it team time. So the athletes say, not important, don't need to do it at home. And then,
almost like homework.
A little bit like homework. Yeah. Yeah. So I think if I have one college baseball team that has bought all in on my program. I have hundreds of individual athletes that I've worked with at the college level, but I have one team back in Kentucky that has bought all in, and they have, we have FaceTime sessions every week. They have team time that they do it. They take it on the road. So these kids are doing it in the hotels. It's just a decision that coaches have to make. Is this something that would be beneficial for our team? And the more healthier you can be, the more robust your body is towards the end of the season, the better, right?
We see so much of that breakdown throughout the season. So here's a trick question for you. What is harder to work with, your athletes or the kindergartners that you used to teach?
Well, sometimes when I teach high school, I feel like I'm teaching kindergartners still. That depends. A lot of it depends on the coach and the structure of the program and what's expected of the athlete. If that is dialed in, and I can get a lot more done. So sometimes that depends on the team.
Okay, one more fun question for you. I realized that you were a CIA trained chef.
Yes.
So if you had to give athletes a quick recipe for like a totally awesome recovery recipe, what would you give them?
Recovery recipe?
Yeah.
Listen, I am a big fan of a one-pot meal, right? I think a one-pot meal is super easy. So a pound of your favorite ground meat, throw it in a big, if you have a big pan, add some rice, add a bag from Trader Joe's of those power greens, which is like spinach and baby kale. Mix that all together. I throw in some garlic and salt and top it with hot sauce. I think that's a very well-rounded, easy meal, one pot, not a lot of cleanup.
It's funny because I'm very much the same way Sammy is. Like, I love to cook. I hate to clean. My wife loved to clean. Yeah. So great marriage for that part. Sammy enjoys the cooking, but he also just don't give me a big mess. So absolutely, I think a one pot is probably the right direction for him.
And
so that's awesome.
And that's a relatively inexpensive meal, right? You can get all of that from Trader Joe's, and it's under $15 probably.
Yeah, and proper eating is part of that recovery routine, right? And I find it relaxing, when we're together and we'll meal prep together and figure out what he's going to have during the week. But knowing that he's getting that quality nutrients to build those muscles while he's not working out and doing those recovery routines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Brian, one more thing, like this, obviously I would prefer athletes do this without a TV on or the phone in their hands, because that's kind of having the opposite effect on what we want to happen. But if time is of the essence, and the only time they can fit this in is at night when they're watching a favorite show or like TikToking or whatever, do it. Like if it's going to be nothing or that, let's go that route. Let's start to imprint that into your routine and your body when we can.
Yeah, like I've been sitting here the last 10 minutes just rolling out my feet, while we're talking, and they're feeling great.
Yeah. So I'll often be on a phone call and have one ball at the wall, and I'll give myself an entire shoulder and back massage while I'm on the phone.
Awesome. Sarah, any last tips for parents or athletes on what they can do to improve their mobility and start having the kind of success that you're seeing with your athletes?
I think switching out the hard balls for softer balls is great. I think leaving them out so you see them is another easy way to do it. Consistency wins, right? The more you do it, the more it's going to help. And if you do try yoga with a yoga instructor and you hate it, it's probably not the yoga, it might be the yoga instructor, right? You have to vibe with that yoga instructor. I've not come back to classes based on how somebody says yoga, right? There was this one lady who says yoga, and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. So if you hate yoga, try a different yoga instructor. It might just be you didn't vibe.
And if parents or athletes have further questions and they want to find you, where can they search you up?
Yeah, so Instagram, I'm LA Mobility Coach. Twitter, I used to be LA Mobility Coach, but that was suspended. So I'm now EMT Ballers on Twitter, and my website is Elite Mobility Training.
Awesome. Sarah, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. I love this.